Hey, this is Pete from 21st Century Prepper. Tonight's podcast, we're going to be discussing flooding. According to Readygov on their website, flooding is the most common natural disaster in the United States. So it is very important that you know what to do in the event of a flood. Joining me tonight is Skip.
Good evening, everybody.
And Crystal.
Hello.
Richard.
Hey.
David.
Good evening.
And Tony.
Hello, everybody.
The gang's all here. Well, most of us. The people that do the podcast are all here. So, for the first time ever. So, I already mentioned ready.gov /floods. Very important. Go check that website out. Whole list of stuff for you. They got links to other items, other places to go check, like a flood map service center. Kind of gives you an idea of what your area is for flooding, prone to flooding, and also the National Flood Insurance Program. Very important. Most people don't have flood insurance. If you don't have flood insurance, you can be screwed. And then they also they have a list of a whole bunch of other stuff on there, covering other related topics like drought, earthquakes, severe weather, power outages, pandemic, that kind of stuff. So really good website to go to. So
maybe we should link that on our webpage, actually, now that we're saying that.
Yep. Skip, you're in Maryland, and you guys are getting nailed right now. So fill us in a little bit on the situation out there.
We have been experiencing really heavy rain due to the tropical storm that's just come up through the Gulf. And what it's doing is it's creating a weather pattern called training. And that's basically where a storm cell sits right over a certain area and just dumps ungodly amounts of rain. I'm sure everybody's seen in the news what happened in Ellicott City, Maryland last week. It was not just isolated to that area, but that's the one that got the most attention. They received 10 inches of rain in under 2 hours. So the flash flooding was just horrendous. I mean, you can't drain that much water, and the ground cannot soak up that much water that quick. So needless to say, that's why it's all over the news right now.
That's kind of what happened with Houston last year, right? It just kind of sat over top of Houston and didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much for the ground to absorb quick enough. You know, I mean, it just comes to a point where it just can't go anywhere. So it's going to run. You know, water runs finds the lowest level.
Yeah, and you're already wet anyway. You've been getting. It's not like this is a new storm. It's been You've been wet for months now. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly. It's saturated here. They say we're average for our precipitation, but it sure doesn't feel like it. We have had in the last 3 days we have had major flash flooding in 3 different cities and within 100 miles of me. So that's a very real danger for people, and you know it's very. If you pay attention and you have situational awareness, you can see that this is happening. I mean, this is all over Facebook that these storms were happening. You know, they're starting to put flash flood watches up, you know, aerial flood warnings. If you pay attention to that, this stuff shouldn't come as that big of a surprise. You should know that you're going to have torrential rainfall or something like that. And, you know, you could prepare for it within hours. You have hours in most cases.
Mm-hmm. And with flooding, it happens 2 different ways. When the ground is saturated already, and when the ground is also, when you've been having a drought, when the ground is dry, because if it's a quick burst of rain, a heavy storm real quick, it doesn't have time to absorb it, and it's just going to flow. So that's why they have a lot of flash floods in the desert regions, because the ground is rock hard, because usually it's just rock. So the water's got to go someplace, and it goes down those gullies, and you know, boom, it takes out campgrounds all the time. People are camping along the river, and you could be 30 feet from the river, a little tiny stream that's right, you know, then it rains 20 miles away.
Yes, yeah.
And boom, you know, because it has no place to go, and it doesn't absorb, and you know, it wipes you out. So websites to follow, apps you can get, obviously local weather channels, listen to the radio, TV,
Your local National Weather Service. I mean, you could
Yep.
like them on Facebook. They're active usually, and you can find out there's a storm coming 2 days in advance.
Yep. And just sort of like with our tornado one and not really much with the hurricane one, but with the tornado one, if you're dry right now, but say there's a potential, you sleep and you go to bed, you could wake up with 2 feet of water in your house already.
Yes.
So be ready to go. Have your shoes next to your bed. Have your stuff ready to go in case in that moment's notice that it could be, a matter of a couple minutes to get out of your house. You wake up with 6 inches of water in your house, and 5 minutes later it could be 4 feet. So you need to get out quick. So you got to be aware and be ready to go. So, anybody have personal experience with flooding?
Well, we had, growing up in the Mississippi River Valley in the Delta country, we flooded every year. It was just something that we knew was going to happen. And people built houses on we call them stilts,
Mm-hmm.
poles that were above the high water mark. We had kids that I went to school with that came to the school bus in a boat.
Oh wow!
That's fancy.
And they didn't think it was any big deal because that's just the way it was.
That's just, look at monsoons even in any Southeast Asia. It's just.
That's right. In the Mississippi River Delta, it will flood and there will be 10 or 15 miles of water between wherever the high water mark was and the river. So we didn't think a whole lot about it, really, because we prepared for it every year. And the things that those folks did was prepare for it every year because they knew it was going to come every year. For places like you're talking about, that it doesn't happen every year, that it happens very infrequently, they're just not ready for it. And everybody should have the same preparations, because those preparations for high water or for tornadoes or earthquakes or forest fires or whatever, it's the same preparation. Have something ready. Have your information, have your food and water, your go bag, and be ready to roll, regardless of the situation. That's where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm. I am currently looking at, we were just discussing stuff prior to recording. 93, I lived in Fargo, North Dakota, and there was a big flood that year. The Red River used to flood just about every spring with the spring runoff. But they really worked on getting it so, they built too close to the river, that kind of stuff. So you narrowed it, you made it faster, you paved over natural floodplain, but they've really been working on reversing that lately. So there hasn't actually been much flooding in Fargo in quite a few years. But 1993 was the big year, and there was flooding everywhere. So if you're interested in seeing... it's 25 years ago already. It's crazy. I'm getting old.
Yeah, you went there,
Damn.
buddy, not me.
It was like yesterday. It's 25 years ago. Google flood of 1993 and look at these pictures. I mean, huge chunks of the Midwest were underwater that normally don't get underwater. Right now I'm looking at some pictures of some pigs on a roof of a building. I don't know if they're dead or if they're just sleeping. It doesn't say. It's just Google images, but whole huge parts of the Midwest were underwater. It was crazy. Fargo, where I lived, wasn't too bad, except the streets flooded because the sewers got full. So then the streets flooded over, but it was maybe 6 inches of water, which flowing 6 inches of water, like coming out of a stream or if like a dike broke or whatever, can knock a person down. A foot of water can float your car. So don't drive through floodwaters. But in Fargo, it was the streets that were flooded. So we could drive in them because it wasn't fast-moving water. It was literally just standing water. But That was my one experience with it. We went out and sandbagged along a couple smaller rivers for some guys that I worked with. We sandbagged around their houses. That was fun. It's nothing like sandbagging to make you appreciate not sandbagging.
Yeah, it'll work you to death.
So, yeah. So check your insurance. If you don't have flood insurance, look into it. It doesn't cost a whole lot, and it could save you a big headache.
If we go by Ready.gov here, there's a couple bullet points here that they have for what to do now for preparation for floods. One is learn and practice your evacuation routes, shelter plans, and flash flood response. That's a really good one. Mm-hmm. Gather your supplies in case you have to leave immediately. Well, we're preppers, so we should have a pretty good chunk of that taken care of. Keep important documents in a waterproof container. Password protected digital copies. We've been preaching that.
Yeah. What else do they have on that?
Sign up for the emergency alert system if you have a weather alert radio. That'll let you know if you're under a flash flood watch or anything.
They can do that with the app too, can't they?
Yeah.
Where it just automatically notifies them on their phones?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the app thing because, how many times have you been out there without cell phone signal in a spot that you're supposed to have cell phone signal and you miss that? I'd rather see somebody have a radio.
One thing about flood insurance, this National Flood Insurance Program, it takes 30 days for the policy to go into effect. So if it's raining already, you're screwed.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Let's see what else. What to do during.
Yeah.
It says depending on where you are and the impact of your warning time, flooding, go to a safe location that is previously identified. That should be something that you share with family and friends. If you are leaving, obviously leave. Don't stand there in the driveway with the water lapping at your feet, texting someone that you're leaving. Have someone else do that. Have your 3-year-old kid can dial, hit grandma's number on the phone, and while you're driving out, saying we're leaving, or you can shout into the back seat, and he can hold it. They can hold it in front of you, and you're saying we're going to whatever location. Don't post on Facebook that you're leaving because your house is flooding until you're out of the house and in a safe location.
And don't take selfies either.
Yeah, don't stand there in the driveway with like a tornado. Go on, hey, hold my beer. I'm gonna stand here and take some pictures. If told to evacuate, do so immediately. Never drive around barricades. Local responders use them to safely direct traffic out of flooded areas. Listen to EAS and the National Weather Radio, local alert systems. Do not walk, swim, or drive through floodwaters.
Yeah, turn around, don't drown, for sure.
Yep.
Everybody's heard that.
And you can drown in just a tiny little bit of water, and your car will float away in a tiny little bit of water. So don't think that you're going to be the one that makes it through in your 4-door Honda.
Yeah. It says here, if your vehicle is trapped in rapidly moving water, stay inside of it. If it's starting to flood, then try to get out. Seek refuge on the roof of your car. Let's see. Trapped in a building, go to the highest level. Obviously, do not climb into a closed attic. That goes back to the hurricane thing with maybe having some pre-positioned tools that you can bust through your roof to get out. Only go there if necessary. If you live in a flood-prone area, it might be a good idea to have an inflatable raft.
Well, we're talking a lot about rain flooding here too, but there's people on the coast and all. We've all seen nor'easters and all too. That's something else to keep into consideration. Is there's other types of flooding other than flash flooding too. That people should be very mindful of. High tides, lunar tides. We had that. God, I don't even know how to pronounce that tsunami that we just had here in the Delaware and Maryland coast weekend ago, this week. It raised the pressure change actually made a tsunami from a storm, and it raised the sea water like 1.5 feet within seconds. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get into trouble with water. I'm trying to.
Here's one other part: what to do after. Listen to the authorities for information and instructions before you return home. Avoid driving into flooded areas, obviously. Snakes and other animals may be in your house. You want to wear heavy gloves and boots during cleanup because of there could be sewer backflow into the water.
That just
Obviously,
happened here.
fuels from gas stations and that kind of stuff, and cars. A lot of toxic sludge, floating around, and probably going to be in your living room now. Be aware of risk of electrocution. Maybe if you have enough time to, when you're leaving, flip the power to your house. If the water's rising, don't. But if it's like, down the street, we got to go, Myrtle, get the kids in the car, and you flip the power off as you leave.
You were talking earlier a while ago about not driving into the water. I had an experience, and I was sitting here thinking about that. I guess it was in 2015 here in Oklahoma, central part of Oklahoma. We got a lot of rain, and there was places that had flooded that I've lived here my whole life, and I'd never seen flood. And there were several incidents of people driving into standing water, running water, and the next thing you know, they're off the road, on the side of the road, in pretty deep water. They opened the car door to get out. Well, these
Seems
cars
like
are obviously taking on some water. But what nobody was prepared for was the airbags started deploying.
Oh yeah.
Oops.
And and I don't know what I remember about it was always the Honda cars. It seemed like it didn't take very long, and I don't know if it was because of the airbag problem that they had identified later on. But you get steering wheel, the one in the steering wheel and one in the passenger side of the vehicle, and in the doors, that type of thing. And I didn't see anybody get hurt, but I wondered later on, what the possibility was of you sitting there and something like that happened, and you're trying to get out.
Yeah.
And that might be a little bit painful.
Yeah, you catch an airbag in the face.
Yeah, that doesn't ever feel good.
Knock it off. It's fine.
And I would suggest if your car is don't open the door to get out. Open the window to get out, because
Right.
if you open the door, you're just letting in a ton more water at one time. If you open the window and climb out Bo Duke style, it'll give you at least maybe a couple more seconds, or maybe even longer than that to get out. Getting out through the car doors.
If your
dicey.
car has electric windows, those windows aren't going to work. So get yourself one of those.
Yeah, punch.
Window punch. Yeah.
Window punch.
Well, the best thing to do is also just wait, if you can be calm, and let the water come to the same level on the inside and the outside. Because the only thing that's keeping your car door closed is the water pressure on the outside. But if you let it equal up, you can open that. But the problem is not panicking while you do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can control your breathing.
We're talking about the after the flood here, Pete, and we could probably do an entire podcast on what to do after a flood. But if you listen to your local authorities would be my biggest thing, because sometimes, just like you said, there's power lines down there not letting you back on your street until they clear it and make sure that everything's safe. But once you get onto your property, the first thing you should do is really take pictures of all the damage, because you're going to go in there and you're going to want to toss all your stinking black furniture out the window and rip up carpet and possibly drywall. But make sure you photograph everything that's going on before you do any kind of deconstruction on your house from the flood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we've touched on it before, and I'm going to do it to death. People are going to get so tired of me saying it, but take pictures of stuff beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Otherwise,
the afters don't do anything for you.
Yeah, have information about all the everything just about everything you own, if you can. Even if you just walk through your house and with a video and say, this is our library of books, and just do a quick video of the library books, and then your TV and your DVD player and whatever. in the long run, it's going to help you because you're going to get more of your insurance claim covered. Because I've covered it before in the hurricane and the tornado one. You just lost, your house is destroyed virtually because of floodwater. You're tossing everything you have. You're tossing your kids' baby clothes out and pictures and all this crap, and someone hands you a form to fill out and says, tell us what you lost. You're going to want to punch the guy. Or
Right.
or woman, equal opportunity and punchers.
We'll just sit Crystal with them.
So if your insurance guy goes, "What'd you lose?" you hand him your flash drive or whatever and say it's all right here, and he's gonna probably kiss you because you just made his job a lot easier, and you just made your job a lot easier, and your job is recovery. So. Do your best to go around and just. Everybody's got a camera on their phone, most likely if you have a cell phone. If it's even the old flip phones.
Yeah, flip phones had a camera.
Good, but everybody's got a camera. I've got, with all the cell phones and iPads and crap in this house, I probably have 12 of them. Go around and take pictures of your stuff. Write stuff down, and put it on a flash drive or. Send it to the cloud, whatever you want to do. That way you can access it and use that information to start rebuilding your life because it's going to make it so much easier.
Yep.
So, and I'll say it again in some other disaster. Everybody's going to get tired of it. A few things after, again, don't, you start tearing your place apart, like Skip said, take the pictures of the damage, and you start tearing your stuff apart. Pretty much everything's going to have to go. Yep. Furniture, carpet, padding, drywall, because that mold's going to start up, especially if it gets hot right away, and find out from, the people are going to come in and let you know how to handle it and what to do, and you can obviously get that information prior to anything happening and be ready to handle it. They're still cleaning up in Houston. I mentioned on the hurricane podcast, one of the members of the page is still going down there to help people. He posted a video of, it was like an apartment or condominium complex type thing, and the stuff was just piled 15 feet high in the parking lot.
Right.
It's just it was unbelievable. And that was one apartment complex out of how many apartment complexes in the Houston area that, it is crazy. So you'll need supplies, gloves, work gloves, rubber gloves,
razor knives,
boots, waders, home masks, because there'd probably be some nasty water, and safety goggles.
The one thing that just happened in Ellicott City with that flooding is the water, when it flooded, it actually created a sewer backup, and people that were 20 miles away all of a sudden had manhole covers explode, and their toilets were flowing sewage into their homes. So, you don't have to be part of the flood to be part of the flood,
Oh, yeah, that'd be nasty.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, too, when you start needing these supplies, if it's a large area like Houston was, everybody needs the same supplies.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you don't have those things already or have a way to access them quickly, you're going to be standing in lines waiting for it. And my biggest thing is, a lot of people don't think about this with floods, is if you have a large affected area, you're talking like food. How do you get basic food? I mean,
Right.
FEMA comes in, that's great, but you've got water everywhere, but it's contaminated. Are you going to have enough water for your family? I mean, just simple things like that.
Mm-hmm. And also your job. You may not have a job for a while.
True.
If the businesses are flooded out and, you may not be working for a time. Obviously there would be unemployment but that takes a little bit of time to get that rolling. And if it's declared a natural disaster, disaster area by the government, then there's money that way too. But that all takes time.
We still
So-
have
I
people
mean, we're
here.
talking months
Well,
and months and months. These
and
people
you're-
that were
yeah,
waiting
you
on
can-
FEMA and the government.
No,
you're
we have
talking-
people here waiting for money from Sandy still. So I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
That's why traditional prepping makes so much sense. And part of traditional prepping is to have emergency cash on hand. I know that budgets are a big deal, but for 2 or 3 weeks, how much would it take you to be able to buy the things you need while you're waiting for the electronic versions of things to come back?
Mhm.
You know, the life sucks.
Yes.
You maybe don't get that tattoo this month. I'm sorry. I'm going to go to the bad route. I'm going to go, not going to trickle over here. I'm going to go way over there. You know, a lot of people eat out. I'm guilty of that. We eat out a lot because we prepare a lot of meals for what we do. So the last thing of the day we want to do is eat out, but we sit back and go, wow, that's a lot of money. If you need some emergency, if you don't have any emergency cash on hand, look at your budget and go, and we've covered this before. How much do we spend on this? How much do we spend on that? You know, break down your budget and go. You're probably gonna crap yourself thinking how much you spend on something you technically really don't need.
yeah, the $5
you
a
know.
day cup of coffee from Starbucks. You know.
Oh yeah, we got a
Yeah.
person we know that goes and complains about money constantly, but goes and buys a $5.50 cup of coffee every day
Yes.
and drives 10 miles to get it. It's
Yeah.
not like it's down the block. It drives 10 miles one way to come in and get it, and then drives 10 miles back.
And you know, I'm sorry, and I'm not a coffee drinker, so for those out there,
Ew.
you know, just, okay, I don't even know what to say, but Skip, I'm looking at you.
I don't know what you're talking
But-
about.
Good thing you can't reach through wires.
Right.
I know, but I can't believe that it is, when you open that Starbucks $5.50, you know, coffee, that it tastes worth that. I have to think that that's a status symbol. I have to, because I can't imagine that tasting that good every single day, day in and day out. Is it really worth that money?
I'll take the fifth on this one.
Okay, well, there's Skip and there's everybody else. So
I don't drink coffee, so
I just
I
I do,
cannot
but I
wrap
won't
my
pay
hand.
$5.50 for
No,
a cup.
I won't drink at Starbucks. I'm going to hurt a whole bunch of viewers' feelings here, but that shit's nasty. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, that has to be a status symbol, right? To have your little
oh
Starbucks
yeah,
cup and
I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
for some
okay.
people.
When you got to order a
Uh,
cup of coffee and you have to give it 6 different names just to get cream and sugar, that's just a little much for me.
I'm gonna get some nasty emails now.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get fucking blown
You know,
up over
from-
this one.
So
Especially
well,
at
back-
$5.50 a cup. So you can, basically, the short version is you can live without it. Throw that money aside in an emergency fund for your family. Get more out of it. That's the point.
you can find some cash someplace.
Go to Dunkin'
You know,
Donuts.
when you come home in the afternoon, take the change out of your pocket, separate it out in jars, cups, whatever.
That's the
you
thing, though.
can.
Nobody uses cash anymore. Everybody uses a card.
Well, you know, and I understand that, but here lately, it's, you know, we've always done that, and it's kind of surprising how much money that you generate over time.
Yeah.
And my deal is that you're saving it for an emergency, but in a situation where you skipping them like they are right now, you may not be able to go to an ATM and
Yes.
stick that plastic in it, but you may have the coins, or you may have paper money, whatever it is. In our case, it's coins, rolls of quarters, stuff like that.
hmm
To go get some of what you need.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, back to the flooding thing. So another thing on the ready.gov /floods, down on the bottom of the page, they have shareables, and there's a few PDFs that they have there. There's a flood safety social media toolkit, which that's just, I'm not sure what that is.
I have no idea yet.
Look at it. Flood information sheet, there's a PDF. There's a link to the American Red Cross, the link to the National Insurance Program. There's a video, 6 things to know before a disaster. How to prepare for a flood. flood creative materials. I'm not sure what that is. The National Creative Resources, answers to questions about flood insurance. So I'll check that out. Very important to be ready, be prepared beforehand.
Knowledge is
just
power.
just like in any other kind of situation, and not just preppers. We don't do this podcast just for preppers. Get the information to your family. If you have family or friends that think you're weird because you have extra food and maybe carry an AR-15 in your car,
Or you're just down south. That's okay.
yeah, get this information to them. Point out what's happening in Maryland right now. It can happen anywhere. It can happen. I mean, it can happen to everybody. Look at any national disaster.
Look at
Natural
New
disaster.
Orleans.
I mean, tornadoes happen. Earthquakes happen. Forest fire, wildfires, forest fires happen. What part of the country hasn't been affected by some kind of natural disaster in the last decade? So for people to turn a blind eye to it and hear no evil, see no evil, say no evil kind of crap, just show them this stuff. I mean, that you gotta
Happens every day, man.
try to make them aware. It's not just for preppers. Try to get the other people involved, because the more people are ready, the less resources are used to help them in the end. You don't need to have the Cajun Navy come over and volunteer to go out and rescue all these people, because hopefully they got out of the area. You're putting other people's lives at risk because you didn't think it was going to happen. If you leave and nothing happens,
Yeah, it costs you
you
nothing.
really heard anything.
Yeah.
No, you took a nice car ride, you stayed in a hotel, there was probably a pool, the kids had fun. You spent a couple $100. Go home and go, whew, we dodged a bullet on that one. And then next time, repeat. And next time you may come home to nothing. So it just, that's all I can say about it. It's just, it's,
Common sense prepping, yeah.
yeah.
Well, the natural disasters, if there's anybody out there who's listening, and we've had this question multiple times about how do I get my spouse on board, or you may be a prepper but you can't quite reach the spouse, and they kind of look at you with glazed over eyes every time you mention this. You can't, when you start talking about these natural disasters that everybody deals with on some level, you gotta think that you can reach them with this. So yeah, they may not understand why you have 15 guns or thousands of rounds of ammunition, but they can get on board with at least, hey, have a backpack because we might have a tornado or
Right.
you might have a flood. Those are safe topics, and then you can branch out from there, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, everywhere in the country, there's somewhere in this country right now, aside from Maryland, there's a natural disaster, and that's a very real thing that you can use to get your spouse, like you said, on board, and have some extra food and have some extra water, and say, hey, this is a real possibility.
Right, and then once you have that nailed down, you can kind of branch off into,
Yeah.
well, let's have a garden and let's have a,
Right.
a plan for this, and yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to buy 15 cans of tomato sauce because we can grow them in our garden and cost half the money and eat twice as good. So, yeah.
Yep. So, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Just major bullet points on it. You got to be situationally aware. And you got to have some kind of plan in place. Have some kind of supplies ready to go with you at a moment's notice. Even if it's just stuff around the house, it's not a bag sitting there ready to go. If you have, they put out a warning that the potential flooding, and you have an hour, then just gather some stuff. Grab your kid's bag from school and throw some stuff in it, and you'd be ready to go.
Turn around, don't drown. That's the
Yep,
big
turn around, don't drown. Have information, your possession, like a flash drive or something of your property. So in case you do come back to a house that was underwater, you have that information ready to rebuild your life, because it'd be a real bitch if you didn't. So just make it easier on yourself. Take half an hour now, would save you a lot of heartache and whatever down the road.
You know, and on that point, I don't mean to interrupt you, but most of your insurance companies are going to have the documents that you need because they want you to do that. Like you said a while ago, makes their job easier.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be as simple as going by your insurance agent. I need what have you got?
Right.
And I would imagine they'll have plenty of things that they can give you for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I talked to you haven't been on the last couple. I talked to an insurance guy who goes out and does this disaster stuff, and I mentioned the flash drive idea, and he lit up like a Christmas tree. He was like, "Oh, that'd be fantastic!" It makes his job easier. He can help more people quicker. It gives you better. You get a better claim because you're not sitting under a tent filling out a piece of paper on a picnic table or a folding table that they've set up in some disaster relief area, and it releases a lot of stress on you, on the person who's lost everything. You're sitting there, your kids are crying, your wife is crying, you're crying, whatever. If you go, here's my information, and it's right there for him to take, he can start the process like that.
Right.
And he said if everybody could do that, it would be so much easier on the system. If everybody had a list of their stuff prior to, because you're going to forget. You're under a lot of strain. You're under a lot of pressure. You're under, you got 50 other people sitting around you who are arguing about this and crying about that, and it said that would make life so much easier for everybody. Yeah.
That whole atmosphere is not conducive to success.
Yeah.
Well, anything with prepper is the whole point of prepping is so that you can stack the deck in your favor.
Oh yeah.
So
Just do it.
Now, one thing I want to say is it seems overwhelming. Every person I've ever talked to that starts off with prepping or has these ideas when we have these podcasts or just when we have chats on the page, they feel overwhelmed. Take a room at a time. Don't look at it as I have to have a whole weekend to knock this out. No. Tonight or whenever you hear this, take your phone and do one room. Have it the smallest room in the house if you have to. And then make a calendar and say every 3 days, one a week, something. Give yourself a schedule and get it done. Because like Pete was saying, 30 minutes out of your life is nothing. We spend 30 minutes, on Facebook mindlessly reading crap that we can live without. You can get your phone and take a couple pictures and make your life easier.
Right.
Promise.
You can even do a walkthrough video. Just walk through your house and start talking about things.
Yeah, and this stuff doesn't take any time at all. Just do it. Just get off the butt and do it.
You don't even have to get off your butt. Just sit in a swivel chair like I am right now. I can just swivel around my room right now.
See, Pete makes it way easy. Just stay on the butt. Just stay on the butt.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
Folks.
there you
Gotta
go.
work smarter, not harder.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thanks for...
I got...
Okay, Tony?
Sorry, I just got one last thing. I've said it a few times in the things I do, that one of the best things you can always make sure is that your vehicle is never less than half a gas tank or diesel, whatever you got.
Yes.
You don't want an evacuation, and that's when you realize your low fuel light's on.
Yeah.
Amen.
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
Yep. Yeah. So, okay. Guess we'll wrap it up. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, 21st Century Prepper, and on the website, 21stcenturyprepper.net. All the other social media, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever the other ones are. Okay. For all of them right now. So, thanks for listening.